Hey, welcome to Ludicrous Battles. In case you were wondering, no, you aren't going crazy. This is a very different voice than you are used to hearing, but get used to it because this is the editor for the channel and I will be stepping in periodically for different matchups such as firefighting shows in Hollywood versus real life, Pro Bowl versus NBA All-Star Weekend, and many, many more. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the future fun. Today's matchup, we're diving into a showdown between two iconic animated canines, Courage the Cowardly Dog and Scooby-Doo. This battle will determine which pooch will reign supreme and earn the title, Man's Best Friend. In order to find out which of these dogs truly is man's best friend, we will need to get to the heart of who these fellas are. The impact that they have, their stories, and the kind of situations and villains they find themselves up against. Each category will dig into their character, story, and world so we can get a better understanding of them and the era of which they came from.
Round one.
Let's start by setting the stage and looking at the legacy of these two renowned cartoon dogs. Scooby-Doo just entered its 53rd year in the public domain, starting with its initial run, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? This ran from 1969 to 1976 under Hanna-Barbera Productions and CBS. It quickly became the hallmark of Saturday morning cartoon lineup, placed alongside legends in 70s TV eras such as Yogi Bear, The Flintstones, The Jetsons, and lesser-known remembered shows like Josie and the Pussycats and Jabberjaw. Scooby and the Gang skyrocketed to the top of the charts, with Nielsen ratings at the time showing that 65% of Saturday morning viewers tuned in just to watch the gang unmask their latest monsters of the week. This success propelled Scooby and the Gang to massive popularity, earning multiple one-hour animated films throughout the 70s, often featuring crossovers of other well-known public figures. Figures such as Batman and Robin, Don Knotts, Casper the Ghost, and the Boo Brothers. Scooby has continued this trend in modern-day specials, featuring Kiss, WrestleMania, WWE, and Supernatural's Winchester Brothers. Beyond that, the Gang has traveled across the world, from swamps of New Orleans to sunny San Francisco, across Hawaii, visiting pen pals in Veracruz, tossing cabbers with Nessie from the Loch Ness Monster episode, studying with Blade in the Scooby-Doo and the Samurai Sword, and even traveling through time. Video games, trading cards, full-length animated and live-action films, spin-offs, rip-offs, you name it, and they've done it. And that doesn't even include the hundreds and millions in merchandising and licensing. The sometimes brave and oftentimes cowardly and always lovable Scooby-Doo has remained the face of the Mystery Gang. Only in recent years have the creators attempted to shift the focus to the other cast members, but the audience haven't been reluctant to tune in without their favorite crime-solving, Scooby snack-loving Great Dane. Courage the Cowardly Dog, on the other hand, while well remembered by those of its era, has had a distinctively less impactful presence in the media sphere. Created by John Dilworth, Courage's first episode, The Chicken from Outer Space, was released in 1996 and was extraordinarily received, even earning an Academy Award nomination, though ultimately losing out to Wallace and Gromit. I guess this wasn't the first time that Courage had to go head-to-head with another memorable canine. The strong reception of the first episode led to the show being fully picked up by Cartoon Network, running for over 4 seasons from 1999 to 2002. Its odd style, eldritch and psychological horror elements, suspense, unique characters and villains, and the creator's preference for avoiding stock sound effects made Courage the Cowardly Dog really stand out. The show featured a diverse musical range from classical to comedic to modern action, and became a staple of the early 2000s animation renaissance. By the end of its run, Courage had received 3 Golden Reel nominations and earned Dilworth an Annie Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Production Design. While not directly credited, it wouldn't be surprising if Courage paved the way for shows like Gravity Falls, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, and their similarly uncanny horror aesthetics. Despite its achievements, one of the main reasons for the show's ending was poor merchandise sales. However, Courage did see success in multiple Flash games of the era, as well as featuring in other Cartoon Network projects like Block Party and Fusion Fall. A brief revival was planned, but ultimately fell through in 2022. However, in the summer of 2021, Scooby and Courage finally crossed paths in the crossover film Straight Outta Nowhere, where they teamed up to battle the evil cicadas. Both shows had an enormous impact on their respective audiences. Despite their ups and downs, it's clear that one has stood the test of time. So, for round one, the lovable Scooby-Doo takes handily this category. It wouldn't be right to discuss these fright-prone dogs without talking about the villains and the monsters they face. Besides the hounds and their respective families, the creepy creatures they face each week are some of the most memorable aspects of their shows. Whether it's suits of armor coming to life, theme park robots gone haywire, the devilish cats, or evil shadows on the prowl, Scooby and Courage have tangled with a variety of enemies. But before we continue with this category, we must establish a ground rule. Now, there's a lot of discussion about Courage the Cowardly Dog and its themes, with some people theorizing that his bizarre misadventures are just an allegory for growing up, or simply the exaggerated imagination of an easily frightened dog. While these theories have merit, for the sake of comparison, we'll take the show at face value. After all, Scooby and the gang deal with both phonies in masks and real monsters. So for fairness, we'll assume that Courage's threats are as real as Scooby's. Besides, it's difficult to explain away getting turned into a wrecking ball and trying to rescue your master who's been turned into a recliner.
Round two.
Now that we have that all out of the way, let's talk about the wide variety of the foes these two iconic dogs face in their adventures. For Scooby, most of his monsters are actually not monsters at all. The majority are just people in costumes, usually with some type of greed or mischievous motive, whether it's money, scaring off rivals, or just the general mayhem. That being said, every now and then the mystery gang does get tangled up with some real supernatural threats. Take Cyber Chase, the Witch's Ghost, and one of my personal childhood nightmares, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. These prove that not all Scooby's adventures are just unmasking bad guys. I still remember watching Zombie Island for the first time. I was not ready for how scary it actually was. But not every villain in Scooby's world is necessarily evil. Take the alien invaders, for example. The real aliens were actually ones being hunted, while the imposters were the ones trying to scare people away from the massive gold mine. Of course, that kind of nuance rarely matters to Shaggy and Scooby. No matter how many times they've unmasked phonies and villains, they always treat each mystery like it's their first, running in terror until they've proven otherwise. But credit where credit's due. Despite being the first to bolt at any sign of danger, all it takes is a promise of those also good Scooby snacks, which are somehow always stocked in the mystery machine. Anyways, all it takes is these Scooby snacks to convince Scooby and Shaggy to be the bait for whatever elaborate trap the gang has planned. Courage, on the other hand, does not have this luxury. Every single one of his enemies is a real threat, and most of them are downright disturbing. Of course, there are some exceptions. Some villains are just other animals with devious intentions, like the space whale or La Quack. Others are just strange people like D-Lung or Fred or Basil. And then there's Eustace. Not only does Courage constantly have to save him, but sometimes Eustace is the enemy, like when Courage has to protect the Bigfoot, otherwise known as Theodore, from Eustace's greed-fueled mob. But it gets even worse. Courage isn't even safe from himself. In the shadow of Courage, a mystery shadow begins haunting the house and impersonating Courage and terrorizing its residents. And then there are villains that are pure nightmare fuel. Take the Ulcer, for example, a grotesque creature who forces people to perform talents and acts for his amusement. You fail to impress him, and you get tossed into a vat of stomach acid. Then there's Fred, a sadistic barber who speaks in rhyme and takes way too much pleasure in forcibly shaving people. That smile alone could crack a mirror. You also have the Spirit of Harvest Moon and Ramesses, which both have that uncanny valley creep factor, the kind that gives you the heebie-jeebies just looking at them. And don't even get me started on the Violin Girl. That was a legitimate jump scare. Also, every second of watching Eustace bugle talk to him is a time that I wish I could erase from my memory. And then there's Cat, whose terrifying spiders and eerie demeanor are enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Ugh. Talking trees, straight out of the Green Knight, the Black Puddle Queen, a siren who comes directly to you and luring you in. It's an endless parade of creepy, weird, and downright unexplainable horrors that Courage has to face on a weekly basis. Honestly, it's no wonder that he's on edge. If I had to deal with stuff like this every single week, I would be too. Heck, this show made kids afraid to even hide under the covers after watching The Demon in the Mattress. An amazing feat that we can't overlook is that Courage was able to keep his mental sanity despite all of these spine-tingling creatures and situations he ends up in.
Final round.
For our final round, we asked the question, well, what about loyalty? Loyalty, as any dog owner would tell you, is super important. Despite being the main catalyst for solving their monstrous and weird encounters, both dogs are well known for their cowardly nature. Scooby and Shaggy are rarely the ones to take decisive action, but whether by accident or sheer luck, they often find themselves playing key roles in capturing the villain. While hesitant to act on the gang's plan, with a little encouragement and a few Scooby snacks, Scooby can always be counted on to do the right thing. He even has his own moments of heroism, like when he saves Shayna from the water monster in Beach Bestie, or teaming up with his virtual counterpart to defeat the Phantom virus in Cyber Chase. Moving on to Courage, he has far more heavy lifting to do. Rescued off the street, this small but mighty mutt constantly faces situations far beyond his understandings. Villains that defy reality, an owner who shows no love, and his own overwhelming fear. However, as he comes to realize, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Facing the impossible odds week after week after week, Courage always finds a way to save his loved ones, or at least do his best. And that is what true best friends do. Both dogs are the first to scram when things get a little spooky, but while Scooby has some team and support beside him, Courage most often has only himself to rely on. Both Scooby and Courage are among the most loyal dogs in Cartoon Network history, but their loyalty is shown in different ways. Courage's devotion to his family is unwavering. No matter the danger, he always finds a way to protect Muriel and Eustace, even if Eustace is a huge jerk. Even when facing terrifying creatures from the unknown, his loyalty isn't just emotional, it's backed by his actions, as he constantly risks his life for the ones he loves. Scooby is loyal to the Mystery Inc. crew, sticking with them through countless mysteries. He even has proven his awareness and dedication by recognizing threats with his own team, such as in The Mummy's Unknown, where he identifies Velma was one of the disguised monsters. However, Scooby's loyalty has its limits. He has a history of running away when things get tough, and he often abandons Shaggy in moments of fear. Not to mention, he frequently needs to be bribed with Scooby snacks just to take action in the first place. Because of his fearless commitment to his family without hesitation or reward, Courage takes this win for loyalty. Both of these dogs are among the most iconic characters to ever grace Cartoon Network, but when it comes to deciding who takes the win, the battle was a lot closer than you might think. In terms of likability and legacy, Scooby comes out on top. He's been around for decades, teaming up with some of the most famous figures in pop culture: Batman, Robin, WWE's John Cena, and countless others. His legacy is widespread and appeal is undeniable. Meanwhile, Courage spends most of his time isolated in the middle of nowhere with only Muriel and Eustace by his side. When it comes to monsters, Courage takes the win. Scooby's foes are mostly greedy criminals in masks, and after a while, their schemes become predictable. The Mystery Inc. gang often figures out really early what's going on, this leaving little room for genuine fear. Courage, however, faces real supernatural threats, creatures that can physically harm him and his family. The stakes are just so much higher, and the terror is real. And finally, loyalty. Both dogs are quick to run when things get scary, but Courage always finds a way to push through his fear. He researches, he strategizes, and does whatever it takes to save Muriel and Eustace, no matter the risk, even if Eustace is a huge jerk to him. Scooby, he's been known to abandon Shaggy for food, fame, or even a love interest, despite the fact that Shaggy raised him. Another thing is, can you imagine trying to afford feeding Scooby after all those years? In the end, with his bravery and unwavering loyalty, courage takes the victory. Winner! Over Scooby-Doo. Do you agree with our pick? Leave us a like and be sure to comment which dog you would rather have as your household pet. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our future matchups, and we hope to see you next Saturday morning for more ludicrous battles.